So it seems like people have a problem seeing wage labor as slavery, which it is. The first thing people do to refute this is to condemn you for comparing wage labor to other forms of slavery, say slavery in the United States a few centuries ago. The claim is that because wage labor is not as bad as those forms of slavery that we typically think of as slavery, you cannot say wage labor is slavery because it's disrespectful to those other forms of slavery. And it makes you seem like an entitled little brat. Now, here's a thought experiment to refute this notion. If I punch you in the face with bare knuckles, and I punch person B in the face using brass knuckles, just because you were not as injured as person B, it does not mean that you were not assaulted. See, the problem with that first argument of wage labor is not as bad as slavery is it assumes slavery does not have differing degrees. Now, yes, a person working at an office job in the United States today is better off than the black slave that was being whipped a few centuries ago. However, it does not mean that the person in the 21st century working the office job is not enslaved. Now, the second thing people bring up is that the employer that they're working for is not coercing them into working for them. They could easily leave and go out and get another job, or they could just not have a job at all. Nobody said you had to work, right? But there are two problems with this kind of argument. The first problem is you have to work to live. The institution of wage labor is inherent in the current system that we have. In a system of capitalism, we need people to get paid money so that they can consume products, so that businesses can get more money, so they can pay people, their employees, their wages, so the cycle can keep going. That's what the system depends on, this cycle of money being shuffled around from consumer to employer, from employer to employee, from employee to consumer. And people are working so that they can consume and that they can live. Because if they don't consume food, they don't consume water, they don't get shelter, then they're going to die if they don't have a high enough number in their bank account. So, yes, they are compelled to sell their labor to the people who own the means of production. So, any profit that the people who own the means of production gain is off the backs of those employers, of those employees, I mean. Sorry about that. Now, the second concept of if you don't like it, leave and go get another job, this totally diverts from the real issue. It's not the fact that you have an employer that treats you badly. It's the fact that you have an employer at all. We can take slavery in the United States a few centuries ago. There were a group of people who, instead of wanting to abolish the institution of slavery itself, they actually wanted slaves to be treated better. People saw that as the main complaint. But the problem with this is, if those people were to get their way and the slaves were treated better, that treatment would not last forever. There would be every incentive for the slave owner to eventually revoke those little privileges. But if you abolish the institution as it is, then there will be no incentive to enslave other people, because that institution, that mechanism that incentivizes such a barbaric institution, would not exist. So the reality is, wage labor is slavery. It may not be a horrid form of slavery. It may not be as bad as other forms of slavery. Hell, it may even be the best form of slavery we ever have. But the fact of the matter is, if you are for liberty, then you have to face the fact that wage labor is in fact slavery.